The Piper J-3 Cub is one of the most important airplanes ever built. It isn't fast, it isn't powerful, and it was never meant to be advanced. Yet this small, yellow airplane did something no other aircraft had done before it. It made flying simple, affordable, and possible for everyday people. This is the story of the Piper J-3 Cub and how it helped shape modern aviation. Aviation before the Cub. In the early 1930s, aviation was still young and expensive. Airplanes were complicated, costly to maintain, and owned mostly by wealthy individuals or businesses. Flying was seen as a luxury, not something the average person could realistically pursue. Then the Great Depression hit. As the economy collapsed, aircraft sales dropped sharply. Many aviation companies went bankrupt, and the future of civilian flying was uncertain. To survive, manufacturers needed a completely new idea. Not a faster airplane, but a simpler one. The origins of the Cub. The Cub story begins with the Taylor Aircraft Company and an airplane called the Taylor E-2 Cub. William T. Piper, a businessman and oil investor, became involved with the company and quickly saw its potential. Piper believed aviation could grow if airplanes were made affordable, forgiving, and easy to maintain. After taking control of the company, he pushed for improvements to the Cub design. In 1938, those ideas became reality with the introduction of the Piper J-3 Cub. Design and simplicity. The J-3 Cub was designed with extreme simplicity in mind. Its fuselage was built from welded steel tubing and covered in fabric. The wings were lightweight, fabric-covered, and supported by wooden spars. Most J-3 Cubs were powered by a 65-horsepower Continental engine. Cruise speed was around 70 miles per hour. There was no electrical system, no flaps, and very few instruments. Early Cubs were hand-propped. Inside the cockpit, pilots found only the essentials: airspeed, altitude, engine instruments, and not much else. This simplicity wasn't a drawback, it was the entire point. Making flying accessible. Because the Cub was inexpensive to buy and cheap to operate, it opened aviation to a new group of people. Flight schools could afford fleets of Cubs. Private owners could maintain them without large hangars or specialized mechanics. Most importantly, the Cub was forgiving. Its low stall speed and gentle handling made it ideal for new pilots. Mistakes that would be dangerous in faster airplanes were often recoverable in a Cub. The J-3 Cub didn't just teach people how to fly, it taught them how to feel an airplane. The Cub and flight training before the J-3 Cub. Pilot training varied widely across the country. The Cub helped standardize civilian flight training in the United States. Thousands of pilots learned to take off, land, and navigate using nothing but basic instruments and visual references. There was no automation to rely on. Flying a Cub required coordination, situational awareness, and respect for the wind. Many pilots who trained in Cubs went on to become airline pilots, military aviators, and instructors themselves. World War II and the L-4 Grasshopper. When World War II began, the U.S. military needed a lightweight aircraft for observation and communication. The J-3 Cub proved to be the perfect starting point. Modified Cubs entered military service as the L-4 Grasshopper. The L-4 was used for artillery spotting, reconnaissance, and liaison missions. It could take off and land in extremely short distances, often from roads, fields, and improvised strips near the front lines. Though unarmed and slow, the L-4 was highly effective. Its pilots flew low and slow over enemy positions, directing artillery fire with surprising accuracy. Generals quickly recognized the value of these aircraft. By the end of the war, thousands of Cubs and L-4s had been built and flown in combat zones across Europe and the Pacific. Post-war America and the aviation boom. After World War II, millions of service members returned home with flight experience or a strong interest in aviation. The United States encouraged civilian flying, seeing it as both an economic and strategic benefit. The J-3 Cub became the backbone of this post-war aviation boom. Surplus aircraft were sold cheaply, and new Cubs continued to be produced. Flight schools expanded rapidly. Grass airstrips appeared across the country. For many Americans, the Cub was the first airplane they ever flew, or even saw up close. The Cub in rural America. Beyond flight schools, the Cub found a permanent place in rural life. Farmers used them to check crops and livestock. Small towns used them for transportation and communication. Because the Cub didn't need paved runways, it could operate almost anywhere. It brought aviation to areas that had never had regular access to it before. The Cub helped normalize flying as part of everyday American life. The end of production. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, aviation technology began advancing rapidly. Pilots wanted faster airplanes with more comfort and features. Production of the J-3 Cub eventually slowed and came to an end. But the airplane's influence was already permanent. Designers took what worked about the Cub and expanded on it, leading to aircraft like the Piper Super Cub. The legacy of the J-3 Cub. The Piper J-3 Cub trained more pilots than almost any other aircraft in history. It shaped how people learned to fly and how airplanes were designed. Even today, flight instructors value Cub training for developing true stick and rudder skills. The Cub demands attention, coordination, and respect for the basics of flight. It doesn't hide mistakes behind technology. It teaches pilots to truly fly. The J-3 Cub today. Decades after production ended, J-3 Cubs are still flying around the world. Many have been restored or rebuilt, often better than new. Pilots continue to seek them out for grass strips, backcountry flying, and pure enjoyment. In an age of glass cockpits and automation, the Cub offers something rare: a direct connection between pilot and airplane. The Piper J-3 Cub isn't remembered because it was advanced. It's remembered because it was accessible. It trained generations of pilots, supported a nation at war, and introduced aviation to the masses. The Cub didn't just change how people flew. It changed who could fly. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and comment and hit that subscribe button.